Live from Fleetown, USA in Forest City, North Carolina. Hi there, folks. This is Corky Kaericher, and you're listening to the Flea Market Guide podcast, brought to you by TheFleaMarketGuide.com, the show that brings you everything you need to know to get started and grow and prosper as a flea market seller in your flea market this weekend. Are you ready to take action? I know I am, so let's get started. This is episode 1 of the Flea Market Guide podcast. Hi folks, this is Corky Kaericher, and this is episode 1 of the Flea Market Guide podcast. I just want to make a few things clear up front about what I'm doing here. First of all, I'm recording live inside a 2.5-acre converted old factory, which is now an indoor flea market in Forest City, North Carolina. So during the recording, you'll hear background noise, people talking, the music that's playing in the market, and all sorts of stuff that proves that I'm really right here in the thick of it, doing what I'm talking about here on this podcast. The other thing I'd like to point out is this is my first podcast. I've never done this before, and while I've done a little bit of radio back in the 90s, and I was a wedding DJ for a brief time when I was a young man, it's been a long time since I was behind a microphone, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes and stutter and stammer sometimes, trying to find out what I'm going to say myself next. That's just the way it goes, and I hope you'll bear with me because this is real. This is me, sitting in front of a microphone, talking to you about what I love, which is flea market businesses, and hopefully you love them too or you wouldn't be here. Anyway, let's go on this journey together, and let's start out by talking about getting into the flea market business in general, and what that means, and what it looks like, and what success is. You'll hear me talk a lot about how I'm all about flea market business success. It's tough to define because it's different for everyone, and we'll get into that later in the podcast, but suffice it to say that what I'm really looking to do here is help people understand that they can be free of the constraints of a regular 9-to-5 world, make a good living, or maybe even get rich, and do it all on their own terms. So let's talk a little bit about how that looks. Starting a flea market business is pretty simple, actually, and flea market businesses can provide a great additional or even full-time income source for you. If you work hard and do well in your market, you can easily expect a fully fledged income with the sales from a flea market booth. Flea markets offer people the choice of selecting their necessary or desired items, usually at low costs. There's also always the chance of finding a one-of-a-kind art piece or a collectible or an antique that you've been looking for. Perhaps it's the nostalgia that draws people to flea markets, or maybe it's the convenience or the low prices, whether that's on luxury items, fancy dresses, electronic gadgets, popular toys, affordable home appliances, or handmade jewelry. You're likely to find any of these and a lot of other stuff, too, at a flea market. Heck, you can find anything at a flea market. I have literally seen it all. And you can bet those sellers are making money, too, or they wouldn't be there. It's a great and fun business to be in, and starting a business in a flea market is no Herculean task. You can easily get into the game. It just takes a bit of patience and a little know-how, which this site and this podcast and our fantastic flea market business community can help you learn about much more quickly than you would just by trial and error. So on this podcast, I'm going to cover tips and strategies and tactics that you can use to launch and start and become successful in a flea market business, or to grow and prosper with one that you're already running. Some of my listeners might have been doing this for decades and know far more about it than me. Hopefully they'll interact with us and share some of their success stories and strategies, and maybe they'll learn a tip or two along the way about something newfangled or just something they had never tried before that they can augment their business with. And in general, we'll work together so that we can all grow and succeed in the ways that makes sense to us. Okay, so how do you get started? Well, the very first thing you need to know when you're going to sell at a flea market is which flea market to go to. Now, you can visit my website, TheFleaMarketGuide.com, and I have over 2,200 flea markets listed in a directory that you can search by zip code to find the flea markets that are near you. I highly recommend that you check those out. The biggest thing you're going to want to do is go and walk around each flea market that's in your area as a buyer. Take a look at who's selling there, what they're selling, how they're selling it, and what kind of competition might be in place for the products you have in mind to sell. One of the smartest things you can do is to identify maybe 2 flea markets within driving distance of your house, check them out, and find out that the product you wanted to sell is only being sold at one of them. Clearly, you'd want to be at the other flea market if they have the traffic, so that you won't have any competition for your particular items. Speaking of which items, You got to figure out which products you want to sell in the first place. The key to setting up a flea market business is doing the inventory shopping well. Make good use of the internet and find the items which you would like to sell directly from wholesalers, or you can go to yard sales at the end of the day and try to buy everything they have left if you're into general merchandise, or you can manufacture products. Perhaps you're a crafter who makes your own jewelry or paints or woodworking. Whatever it is that you want to sell, you need to figure out what it's going to be and what its value is. If you're skeptical or uncertain about what would sell best, go back to Rule 1. Consider hitting your local flea markets, malls, vendors, and websites, and scout for crucial clues. If you find them making a good income with certain niches of products, such as sporting goods in the country or kitchen supplies in the city, then chances are positive for you to find your place in the market with a product similar, but maybe just a little different from the other vendors. And if your product is exactly the same as other vendors, then you're going to want to look at a blog article I have on TheFleaMarketGuide.com that discusses something called the unique selling proposition. But that's beyond the scope of this first episode. That's the way that you can differentiate your similar product from others like it, by just pointing out how yours might be better or more versatile or less expensive or whatever. That's the premise of a unique selling proposition. But that's, like I said, a topic for another day. Anyway, if someone is doing well selling pots and pans, for example, try selling a nice line of small appliances like blenders and juicers. Once you figure out that the items that you would be selling are going to sell, purchase them in small quantities online or at local stores on clearance or even at yard sales to keep your first round startup investment low. Which brings us to getting that inventory cheaply. There are numerous ways to source product to sell, including retail, wholesale, manufacturing, and private labeling. Some of these are easier than others, but of course the more you do, the more you gain. I'd like to suggest that new sellers hold back on big ambitions for their very first day and stick to basically having a yard sale of items from around their house to learn the ropes. That keeps your risk almost non-existent and at least very low. Once you've gotten a weekend or two under your belt in a real flea market selling situation, then you have a whole new, slightly adjusted outlook on what it's going to take and what you will need to move up to your real ongoing product line. And then you can invest. Once you start off with some stuff from home, it's essentially more or less free, and you can even use that money to bankroll your first actual inventory purchase. Use this income to buy items locally, like I said, on clearance at big box stores, a very popular way to get merchandise, or to shop online sales, and use discount codes on the internet to get items you can easily mark up. Graduating from there leads to buying in bulk from wholesalers or manufacturers, and is a big topic, which we will also cover in another article on the blog and in future podcasts. The big thing that you need to have when you go to the flea market, aside from inventory, is confidence. Yeah, I know, that's intangible, and not everyone feels like they have it. But trust me, you can be confident that someone will buy something from you at a flea market almost every time, as long as you're not ridiculously overpriced, and your products are at least something, that can be sold. Broken and damaged merchandise can even be sold, but I wouldn't start there unless you're an expert. So the main thing that we need is confidence, and the first step you should take is, the first step. You have to take action to make a reaction happen, and we want that reaction to be your rise to success as a flea market entrepreneur. Gaining confidence is a must and is actually easy to accomplish. All you have to do is do. You simply have to start doing things that move you towards your goal of owning a business, and just do something regardless of your fear. Just like I'm doing with this podcast, which, I'll be honest, is a little bit frightening. I'm putting my voice out there for you to hear and rank and rate, and I might be terrible at it, and I might get a ton of negative feedback. But with any luck, I'll reach at least one person and help them grow and prosper in their flea market endeavors. Anyway, with the confidence that you're going to gain, it will begin to compound like interest. Every time you make a sale, you'll become more confident. Every time you come home with a profit for the weekend, you'll be excited about the next weekend, and you'll eventually become self-propelled. So eventually you'll realize you've long surpassed that initial reluctant feeling, and you're on your way. But remember, you need to sell yourself first and then your product. People buy things from people they know, like, and trust, and they can decide some of those things within seconds of meeting you. So keep your confidence and dedication high, and beware, because if you lack those things, you may come off as shady or unreliable, and then no one will purchase from you. Greet everyone with a smile when they walk into your booth, thank them for stopping by, and ask them if there's anything in particular they are looking for. I learned a long time ago in retail not to ask people, "Can I help you?" because something instinctive inside us says, "No, I don't need any help. Do I look like I need help?" So I like to say things like, "Hey, how you doing? Are you looking for something special today?" and that usually will get people to talk to you, which is the key. Once you engage in conversation with a customer, you can begin to get that minimal knowledge and liking and trust bond forming between you so that they feel comfortable making a purchase. Next thing you need to do is study the market competition. Before you start your flea market business, it's important that you visit other flea markets and look around to see how other businesses are marketing their items. Check out the competitors' booths, figure out what is working and what is not, and based on that, take your action to be different, that unique selling proposition we were talking about, and offer more value to win the customers, or adjust your thinking on what you plan to sell to fit better into the flea market you're working at and capture sales in an underserved category. Here's 4 quick tips that you can use right away to get started. Tip number 1. Visit all the flea markets in your area and look at what's being sold there to determine what you should sell with the least amount of competition and the highest probability of success. Tip number 2. Talk to the flea market owners to see if people have been looking for specific items that aren't available at those flea markets and bring those market items to bear. Tip number 3. Talk to wholesalers and distributors about products that they're doing well with and see if you can get good pricing on them to get started. And tip number 4. Always shop around before you commit to buying product, because there's a good chance you might find it cheaper elsewhere or a better value on a better quality of product from a different distributor. And remember, if you follow these 4 tips, stay true to yourself, do what you believe in and are passionate about, and strive for success by always working with a smile on your face, then you will in fact be successful. All you have to do is take action, take the next right step, press forward, and you will succeed. Good luck to you, and I hope to see you at the flea market soon. Hey, I really want to take a moment to thank all of you listeners for using your time to listen to the Flea Market Guide podcast. I'm proud of what we do here, and I'm glad you find it of value. But whether you do or you don't enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review for me over at iTunes or wherever you obtain the podcast from. Your rating and review will help me to determine what to do next and how to improve the show. I look forward to bringing more content to you as soon as I can, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a ton. Until next time, I'll see you at the flea market.